Hi, good morning. It's Thursday, and I'm packing for my trip to go to northern Missouri in a couple of days. I just wanted to put something up in case I don't bring my laptop with me. I'll have something I put up. I thought this was interesting. If you can hear it, it's playing very, very faintly. The volume control is all the way up. I'm getting a really good signal, so this is a classic example of a bad or a leaky capacitor or an open capacitor in the output stage. I'm thinking it's probably this one or that one. I'll have to put, I'm going to put this old Philco circuit tracer on it and see if I can get it that way, because the not cool thing about this, I'm not using my stick here. The thing about this Philco is it's got this probe on it, and this probe actually has a detector tube in it. So instead of actually touching whatever you're looking for with the probe tip, all you gotta do is hold it next to the area, and it should pick up the radio station on here. And if I'm getting a strong signal on that one particular area, it should show up there. Now I've had this thing. It got flooded a couple of 4 years ago when we had, I think it was more like 5 years. We had the Hurricane Michael come through here, and we got flooded, and a lot of stuff that I had got ruined. I mean, it was salt water that came up, and it was in the house about a good 6 inches, and on the outside here, it was literally up 3-4 feet. So I had to throw a lot of stuff away, but I managed to save this. Although you can see it's got a little bit of corrosion on it, but I took it apart and I sprayed everything really, really well with WD-40 and cleaned it. And I think it's still working, but I'm going to go ahead and try that in a little bit if I can. But this, if I didn't say this before, this is a Sony ICF-5500. It's the W model. It was made in the mid-70s. It's, as you can see from the cover, it's got FM, AM, and public service channel, which the 5500s had shortwave, but I don't need shortwave. See, it's a 55 with my finger, 5500W. That's the case here, and here's the back of it. It's actually a cool little box, but that's what the inside of the back. Now here's the funny thing about this. When I took this apart, I had to actually have some documentation here with some of the schematics and stuff, but the disassembly procedure for this was you basically took 4 screws off, and the back was supposed to come out, and then you pulled the knobs off the front, and it was supposed to lift up out of the case. Well, that, of course, never happens. The 4 screws came out fine. I took the knobs off. I partially got it lifted up, but it was in there. I mean, and what the biggest mistake you can make when you try to get something like this out of the case and it's not budging, don't force it. You're going to start snapping stuff and everything else. And I worked at it with my fingers for like 45 minutes, and I finally eased it all out of there. So at least I got to that point. But you can see the boards are pretty much, the areas are pretty much demarked. And do you hear it? That's as loud as it gets. The volume is all the way up. This is obviously indicating to me that it's got a bad output capacitor going here to the output transformer. Probably one of these two. This one or that one. You're not supposed to use your finger on YouTube, I guess, but who gives a crap? This runs on 3 D-cell batteries, so it's 4.5 volts. When I bought it, the seller stated it wouldn't power up, and I bought it, and sure enough, when I got it, it was dead, totally dead. Wouldn't power up off the battery. I had a 4.5 volt wall charger I plugged in, nothing, no sound, no crackling. I thought there might be some corrosion in here, because when it was all covered up, you couldn't see up in there. But what it turned out to be is this connector right here going to the battery is basically just kind of sitting on it. And when I figured that out, I popped it back on there. It's not soldered on there yet, but it's working. But unfortunately, no joy after that, because you can't obviously run a radio like this. But it gives me something to work on, I guess. Anyway, that's pretty much what I have right now. I'll go ahead and post this. But one of the funny things is every time I make a video, I always have the local religious channel, the church channel on, and that's basically all this thing is getting, is that one channel. I'll go ahead and tune it, but you can see the tuning meter. Well, it's getting the beat. You know, one of the things I wanted to kind of do with this is I'm going to let it run for a while on the 4.5 volt batteries. And I've already noticed improvement. It's entirely possible that one of those, whatever capacitor's bad, might reform enough to get, it's never going to get usable, but there has been a definite improvement. So that just means that the cap isn't totally open. And it getting fed 4.5 volts is not going to reform the cap. It's probably a 10 volt cap. Because when you stick a wall charger on it, a lot of times you get higher voltage. So if you plug a 4.5 or 5 volt wall wart into it, you might get up to 8-9 volts. You really have to check your wall warts. The cheaper Chinese ones that have switching supplies in them always run about 5 or 6 volts higher than what they're rated. And I don't think it's critical unless you're plugging into something that's from the 70s that the power charger that came with this was made by Sony. It was probably right on the nose at 4.5 volt. And it certainly wasn't a switching power supply. I mean, you know, and this brings me up to another thing. The quality of stuff that you buy now is just horrifically garbage. It's just garbage. All these AM/FM portable transistor radios they're selling now from China that everybody's on YouTube going, oh, this is like 2023 beautiful AM/FM portable radio. They're garbage, and they use chip tuners, and they have crappy power supplies. They're not regulated. I mean, you know, we have really sold ourselves short on all this garbage coming from China, and we basically created the economy that they have now that is strong enough where we're probably going to get into some kind of confrontation with them here shortly. And I really am concerned about what happens to the youth in this country, if they're going to get meshed in that, or I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't mean to be a downer, but, you know, I think all of you kind of realize that things are not going well, especially with the current administration that we have and everything else. And wow, I don't know. And this guy that they just elected in Chicago to take over for Lori Lightfoot, he is bought and owned by the teachers union. The teachers union got so much money from Biden when Biden first came into office, hundreds of millions of dollars. It was a payoff to get them, to get the people, the teachers, and to vote for Biden. They're swimming in cash and becoming this huge political organization. Now, why is the teachers union becoming a political organization? What is their end goal? Well, you know what one of it is. They want to take over your children. I mean, come on. This isn't something I'm making up, obviously. It's just, I don't know. All right, didn't mean to rant. Sorry, guys. I will get back to you hopefully within the next couple days. And if I don't, then I'll be leaving, but I'll have something to show you. What I really want to do is when I get to northern Missouri and get settled in with the grandchildren, I want to make a couple of really short videos about me going to these out-of-the-way stores I've been frequenting over the last 20 years. They're still there. And maybe we can find some really cool stuff to at least look at. I'm not going to buy a bunch of crap up, but I know I like watching thrifting videos because I don't have to be put in a position where I buy stuff. I'm like, ooh, you should buy that. But good luck to you because I don't have to have it. All right, well, take care. I'll talk to you in a little bit, hopefully. Hi, I just wanted to add this to the back of the video since I'm working on a transistor radio. If you're at all interested in working on vintage audio equipment, certainly start with a transistor radio because it won't take up a lot of room. You can do it on your kitchen table. You don't need a whole lot of tools. There's a ton of YouTube videos up there by very capable people, you know, spending up to an hour going through these little transistor radios, showing you all the problems that you can encounter. The parts to repair them won't be expensive, but what it really, the most important thing about transistor radios, they're very small. You need to have patience. Take your time. It's not like working on some giant, you know, amplifier or something that's got high voltages in it. You're not going to get electrocuted off of a transistor radio ever. You could probably put your tongue on these cheaper ones like this one. I bought this at an antique mall about 5 years ago on one of the trips that we made up to northern Missouri because we have to go up there all the time to visit the grandchildren. And it's a 2-day drive and I hate it. My wife won't fly. And it's just like, you know, you're just in the car for 8-9 hours, 10 hours, and then you pull over at night and you go to sleep and you get up, crack it on next morning and keep going. But I bought this. This thing was a crust monster. I only paid a couple of bucks for it. You can see the batteries that were in it had basically just like gone everywhere. And I got it to work, and I've been taking it on these trips with me because I play it in the hotel room. Whenever we stop at some small town on these trips, I pull this little radio out and I search around for stations because there's some really cool local stations you can find that you'll never hear of. But if you're local and you get them in, then you're like, wow, this is a really good, you know, some of these stations have been around for 60 years. They got this huge inventory of music that they've accrued over the years from 45s, 8-tracks, all the stuff that, you know, the music producers gave them for free, and they play them, and you'll hear stuff that you haven't heard in, you know, a long time. And then when you get back home, a lot of them actually have an online presence, so you can go up to, you know, like TuneIn or radio. There's a radio app, radio something, but you can find them. And I found like 5 or 6 really good local radio stations that I actually listened to online. I never would have known about if I didn't have a little transistor radio and hadn't used it like in the middle of nowhere small town while you're traveling. And my wife's been really good about letting me do that. You also find good Chinese restaurants. Some of these local middle of nowhere Chinese restaurants are like phenomenal. And they'll give you 10 pounds of food for $20 and they'll deliver it to the hotel. Or you can drive up the road a mile and sit there. Anyway, this thing's pretty crusty, but this would be the kind of thing that you would look for. And see, the problem I have with this now is obviously the battery connector. I didn't do a very good job on it, but you can see how, and I've cleaned this thing, and it's still crusty, but it works. And I was going to fix it for this trip, but I've got another radio that I've been listening to the last couple days that I'm going to take with me. But I want to show you, this is the kind of stuff that you should start off with. And I actually like working on transistor radios better than, but what you do is don't get an AM only. Find an AM FM. That way, if you're like me and you don't have, if you're not in an urban area, you'll actually be able to pick up stuff that you can listen to. So that's my recommendation anyway. And you can find these for, you know, anywhere from $5 to $10. And a lot of them actually work. Just wanted to give you that. And the last thing I wanted to say was, I have been trying to get all my stuff set up on a tripod so I don't have to carry it around, but it's hard to find a good tripod. I don't want to buy a new one off of Amazon because they're all made in China. And this piece of crap is made in China, but it's okay. But the other day when I was at the Goodwill, they had a mid-70s Kmart Focal branded tripod that was made in Japan. And I saw that and I about wet myself. I'm like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. It had heavy aluminum legs. I mean, you could tell it was so much better than this thing and anything else I've found. A lot of them are just all made out of plastic now. So one thing you have to watch out for if you do want to buy a tripod, you have to make sure that the legs extend. I mean, you have to work it out, because a lot of these, the reason why they're in the Goodwill or the thrift store is there's something wrong with them, and you don't want to get it home and go to use it. And I actually looked at one, and I was going to buy it, and I'm walking up to the counter, I realized one of the legs is missing out of it. One of these legs that comes out, that pulls all the way out, was gone. They had just cranked it all the way up and I'm like, oh my gosh. But the one I looked at the other day, I was testing it, and it had clips. These clips, it had metal clips on the legs, and all the legs came out, and everything was going up and down. And then I popped one of the clips, and it flew right off of the leg. It just broke off. And I'm like, oh, crap. And when I'm trying to put that leg back on and pushing the other legs up, the other clips just like busted off by themselves. It was like raining clips on the ground. So I looked around real fast, make sure nobody was watching me, and I just stuck it back on the shelf. But man, I was like, I would have been so happy if that thing was working, because that was exactly what I'm looking for. You gotta love old Kmart stuff. It was quality. I miss Kmart. I miss Radio Shack. But I'm just adding this to pad this out a little bit. I'll give you something interesting to think about. All right, thanks for watching.